Nick Saban's the GOAT, but the GOAT's gone. Who should take over the throne? Welcome to the voice of college football, breaking down the game we all love each and every day with you. Best discussion, debate, and analysis based on your contribution and your participation. Let's get to the candidates. Let's start with Dabo Swinney at Clemson. He's a Bama grad, Bama player, Bama guy. And he's been talked about for years as the ultimate successor to Nick Saban. All right, we're going to run down the pluses and minuses for all these candidates. Let's start with Dabo. The record is sterling. We know that he's taken on Nick Saban 4 times, and he's won 2 of 4 when it counted. Championship play. That is stellar. His run from 2012 to 2020 was amazing, especially considering the circumstances. He took over a Clemson program that was not Clemson of 2023. It was Clemson of the decades of the 80s and 90s and 2000s, of winning 7, 8, 9 games a year, being a decent football program. Think Kansas State. Think current Oregon State. That was Clemson for much of that time during the previous 3 decades. He built a winner. He was a wide receiver coach, and he took over. He had no qualifications, should not have been taking over a major football program, a top 15 to 20 program at the time, and build it into, there was a time, 2015, 16, 17, 18, in that range, when it could be argued, and was, that Clemson was the number 1 football program in the country. The pluses are all over the place. He built a culture. This guy is so comfortable in his skin. He's got an identity. Everybody knows who he is. I'm not going to say that everybody likes him, but he's got a personality that brings in players. He has built a culture at Clemson. His players love him. They move on to the NFL, and they talk well about Dabo Swinney. The identity, he is a driving force in college football, and he built a winner at Clemson. Those are the pluses. There is no doubt what he has been able to do, and he has coached in big games and won big games. He is a big-time winner, one of the greatest of all time. The negatives, look at the win-loss record. Is Clemson in decline? Well, clearly they are in decline. Is Dabo Swinney going to pull them back to elite status? We don't know. So 3 consecutive down seasons shows that he's lost something, and something's not quite right. Will he fix it? There have been other great coaches that have gone through minor slumps and been able to come back on the other side and get the job done and build their systems and their programs back up to championship play. Then the other major question is the transfer portal. He's done nothing, and you have to use the transfer portal to be successful in college football today. Dabo Swinney's got to get that together at Clemson, and regardless of how much he hates it, dislikes it, doesn't want college football going in this direction, he's got to give into it, much like Nick Saban did about 10 years ago in updating his offense. First candidate, the pluses and minuses, Dabo Swinney, Clemson. Could it be possible? Could Kirby Smart actually move over one state and go from what he has built at Georgia to Alabama? Why would he do that? Well, he could just be showing off, basically to say, I did this at Georgia, I can do it at Alabama, I can follow Nick Saban the GOAT, and I can replicate what he did and continue to win national championships and further my legacy, as this could be down the road, as the new GOAT, or the challenger of Saban as the greatest of all time, Kirby Smart. What he's done at Georgia has been remarkable. So the pluses are all over the place. He recruits like a madman. He is the best recruiter in college football as a head coach right now. The recruiting at Georgia has even slightly surpassed Alabama in the last few years. So recruiting out of his mind. So that transition to Alabama would be smooth, smooth, smooth. He is a Nick Saban protege. He knows Alabama football. He knows the history, the tradition. He knows how the university works. He's worked there as a defensive coordinator at a high level, so he knows the operation, and so he's got some relationships there. He knows the lay of the land in Tuscaloosa, so Kirby Smart could make that transition easily. What did he do at Georgia? He took over an excellent football program. Remember 2012, Mark Richt, how good they were? So he was supplied with talent when he walked on campus, but he put it all together, went through one rough 8-5 season, then off to a national championship game in 2017. So he can elevate a program. That's what he's shown at Georgia. He's not done it at multiple stops, So maybe this is the perfect situation. Would he leave his alma mater to go to Bama? Again, for me, it's not about money. It's not about whether he can win more at Bama. How can you win any more than what they've done at Georgia the past few seasons? But Kirby Smart, the pluses are all over the place. The minuses, I got nothing except, is he willing to move? Kirby Smart, Georgia. We go from the slam dunks to the intrigue and the question marks to Oregon and Dan Lanning. The pluses, he's young, he's energetic, he's aggressive, he's on fire, he's a recruiter. He is taking on this modern college football world of transfer portal and NIL head on, and he's getting it done. He has taken what Mario Cristobal left him, and he's elevated it, both in recruiting and also on the field. So Oregon was a really good football team with Mario Cristobal, but they are not just collapsing in big games. Now, Dan Lanning has not been able to push through to a Pac-12 championship, but he's only had 2 shots at it, and he's had 2 really good football teams that have played well, that have been top 10 football teams. So Dan Lanning's got a ton of pluses. He's worked in the SEC at Georgia. He knows the lay of the land. He knows the competition in the SEC. He knows from a recruiting standpoint that part of the country. Dan Lanning is an excellent choice. The pluses are all over the place. The minuses, is he really proven? He took over a program at Oregon that was already a top 15 program. He has slightly elevated it. What has he really proven? He didn't push through Washington this year with a second opportunity. They weren't necessarily the better prepared team in a championship game after they had already lost in Seattle. That's not necessarily a great indicator. I don't consider that a warning sign, concern, red flag, anything like that. But it's something to be considered. 37 years old. Is he ready for Bama? Dan Lanning, next candidate, Oregon. Is the Lane train coming to Tuscaloosa? Can you imagine Lane Kiffin, the head coach at Alabama, with all those resources at his disposal? He is a Nick Saban protege. Remember their stay there together. It was entertaining. It wasn't necessarily fun for Lane Kiffin all the time, but he now says, hey, I learned so much from Nick Saban. These guys have said all sorts of great things despite their heated discussions, or basically Lane Kiffin getting his arse ripped to shreds on the sideline in front of national television audiences on a fairly regular basis. But they both speak highly of each other. I don't know where Nick Saban would stand with Lane Kiffin as his successor, but he says, I got to credit Lane Kiffin with updating our offense, completely revamping our offense, bringing us into modern college football, updating us so we could stay competitive and win championships. He has credited Lane Kiffin with that numerous times and said he has learned so much, he's matured, he's doing a great job at Ole Miss. And Lane Kiffin on the other side has said he's the greatest of all time. I learned so much from him. And Lane Kiffin still smirks, still says strange things, still says funny things, still says some possibly inappropriate and non-politically correct things that I don't know would go over as well at Alabama. A little bit more buttoned up, tightened up there at Bama. But Ole Miss, they're a traditional school in the good old South, and they're taking it because, you know what? Lane Kiffin is winning, but he's never won on a big stage. So we see the pluses. Offensive mind. He can relate to the players. They love him. They love playing for him. Look at the transfer portal. He's working well with that. He has been one of those guys that has, bam, taken hold of the transfer portal and said, this is the path to victory, and he has taken advantage. So how much more could he do that at Alabama? Minuses would simply be, is he really a good fit for Alabama culture? Does he have the class, the appropriateness, the approach, kind of that certain look as an Alabama football coach? And I'm not talking about looks, I'm talking about that demeanor. And also, he has yet to win big. He's never really taken his team to a big game. He's had several stops, man. He knows the lay of the land in college football. USC, Tennessee, now Ole Miss. Wow. And a stop at FAU to kind of humble him. Lane Kiffin, intriguing. Those are the pluses and minuses of the Lane train. Who in the world would have had this guy on this list to succeed Nick Saban 2 years ago? Mike Norvell has done a remarkable job at Florida State. Consider the condition of the program versus the expectations. when he took over Florida State football in 2020. Jimbo Fisher left the program in shambles from a culture standpoint. A lot of bad blood, a lot of bad feel, a lot of bad vibe, a lot of bad habits going on within the football program. Roster talent was left there by Jimbo Fisher, and then that slowly declined during the 1.5 to 2 years under Willie Taggart, who did a deplorable job. So Mike Norvell took over a bad football program, a bad football team, and also just had to reestablish pride, work ethic, determination, confidence, accountability, all those things. He showed that he can turn around a program. Dabo Swinney did a remarkable job at Clemson, but Clemson was in much better shape than what Florida State was in 2019-2020 when Mike Norvell first stepped on campus. He's done a remarkable job. They just completed a 13-1 season. When they had their full team, they were 13-0 and won the ACC championship. So he has gotten a taste of championship level play at Florida State. They marched through all the big games that they faced this year against Clemson, Miami, and others. The ACC championship game against Louisville came down the stretch with an injured quarterback, still maintained enough against Florida and Louisville to win an ACC championship. Mike Norvell has done a great job, and I just think that he has that demeanor. He can play politician, but he can also cut it straight. He's a direct guy, but he knows how to work that room, and he knows how to walk that line. He does it in a remarkable way, knows how to talk to the media, his players. He can be relatable to the 17 and 18-year-old. Look at what he's doing in the transfer portal. We talked about Lane Kiffin. Mike Norvell and Florida State have been the most effective transfer portal program in the nation. Look at last year's team. Look at what they accomplished, and look at their main players. Transfer portal, Mike Norvell. The minuses, he just hasn't done it in the SEC. And I would say in traditional recruiting. Remember, there is still high school football recruiting here. And Mike Norvell has taken a backseat to a certain extent to Miami and Florida in state. So his recruiting has not been the best. He's been beaten up a little bit on the recruiting trail in state by Florida and Miami. Next candidate, Mike Norvell, FSU. We're done with the reasonable candidates. Now we get to the wild card. Just because he was brought up during our call-in show a number of times last night, and the thought of it is intriguing. Bama fans, you may want to cover your ears. Nick Saban supporters, cover your ears for just a second, because there could be, for a short period of time, an argument made that this guy is the GOAT. For a short period of time, from about 2006 to 2018, Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer at Alabama. It fits in certain ways, in other ways, it does not fit at all. Okay, the pluses are obvious. Again, he has GOAT status in a short period of time. He's got the greatest winning percentage of all time. He won in the SEC. He won in the Big Ten. National championships. He won at Utah. He won at Bowling Green. When this guy steps on campus, the winning percentage just goes through the roof. It automatically goes to 90%. It's been amazing. Again, like him or hate him, Bowling Green, Utah, Florida, Ohio State, he steps on campus and they're immediately better. His staying power may be limited. He gets a little itchy, gets ready to leave, does some stupid things off the field, but let's stay with the pluses. He knows how to build a program, does amazing. Just the winning percentage in the championships tell you everything. All right. The minuses, I don't know that his style and approach as a dictator of sorts would work in this day and age of college football. And we talk about 2018, Urban Meyer's last year at Ohio State, like that was prehistoric times. But in a sense, it's a different world. And in a sense, the respect and the fame and the awe of Urban Meyer would attract certain recruits, but maybe these kids at this age, based on what they know of Urban Meyer, consider 2018 was 5 years ago, going on 6 years ago, his last year at Ohio State. Again, another typical 13-1, finished number 3 in the country, won the Rose Bowl, won the Big Ten, and then that's the end of his career, potentially. But a lot of these kids know Urban Meyer, Jacksonville, and all the bad things that came out, all the bad things that he did, all the questionable decisions and the stories off the field. So Urban Meyer, wild card. Okay. Here's our list. Number 1, it's a slam dunk. It's not even close. Kirby Smart. Number 2, Dabo. But if I'm the Alabama administration, I'm having a conversation with Dabo Swinney to say, transfer portal. You tell me not just you're going to dive into the transfer portal, but we want to hear a plan. We want to hear confirmation that this is going to be a priority, because it just has to be. So if you can add that, then Dabo's number 2 for me behind Kirby. Then at number 3, I've got Mike Norvell. I think he's a great candidate for this job. Dan Lanning at 4, Lane Kiffin at 5, and again, Urban Meyer, wild card. We appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. If you want to hear more on this, check out the live stream that we delivered on whatever night it was, Wednesday night, when Nick Saban announced his retirement. And we went live with all of you and had some great calls. So check out the live stream and keep it locked in right here at the Voice of College Football.